Hey yo, welcome to this full spoiler review for Stephen King's big, bloated, boring, rambling novel, Christine. Yeah, but before I get into talking about this mess of a book, I do want to say I'm a big fan of John Carpenter's Christine. This is clearly a case for me where the movie wins, and not just by a little, by a lot. So, full spoilers because there's 1,000 reviews for this already on BookTube, and if you want to see a non-spoiler review, you can find 50 of them right now. So here we go. Let's talk about this book. Maybe I'll read the inside flat. Maybe that's what I'll do. I don't know. Or the synopsis from the back of the book. Is that better? Nah, we'll read the inside flap of the novel. You want me to try to do it in like a movie trailer voice? Is that what you want? I don't know. Scene: a middle-class suburb of Pittsburgh. Time: 1978. Cast of characters: Arnie Cunningham, a bookish and bullied high school senior; Dennis Gilder, his friend and sometimes protector; Leah Cabot, or is it Lee? Lee Cabot, the new girl in school, won by Arnie, but wanted by Dennis as well. Just another lover's triangle, you say? Not quite. There's a fourth here, the second lady, the Dark Lady. Cars are girls, Lee Cabot says. And the dark force in Stephen King's new novel is a 1958 Plymouth named Christine. Actually, it's a Plymouth Fury. A 1958 Plymouth Fury. Somebody should have edited this flat. Named Christine. She is no ordinary car. This white, over-red, two-tone survivor of a time when high-test gasoline was priced at $0.25 a gallon and speedometers were calibrated all the way up to 120 miles an hour. A time when rock and roll, in all its first crude power, ruled America. A time when speed was king. Arnie Cunningham is determined to have Christine at any price. And, little by little, Dennis and Lee begin to suspect the price is his growing obsession. May be terrifyingly high. The price of his growing obsession may be terrifyingly high. Its result, blackly evil, as Arnie sets feverishly to work on the seemingly hopeless job of restoring Christine. Christine begins to develop a terrible life of her own. Or is that only imagination? Dennis continues to hope so. And then people begin to die on Libertyville's dark suburban streets and roads. And the time comes when Dennis can no longer deny the horrifying truth. Christine is alive. So there you go. Yeah, that's it. Killer car. Cast of characters, like we said. We got Arnie Cunningham. We've got Dennis. We've got Lee Cabot. Those are kind of our three main ones. So we'll talk about them a little bit. Arnie is they call him Pizza Face. Got acne. He's in shop class or auto class or whatever. A bunch of other kids. Dennis is his best friend since they were like, wee hi. And Dennis is a football player, school football team, high school football team. And he's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan and a Philadelphia Phillies fan. So that's one thing about this is set in Pennsylvania rather than in Maine, which was a nice change. Of course, we got Christine, the 1958 Plymouth Fury, custom paint job, red and white. The first time that there's any inkling of something weird with the car happens on page 65 in this 526-page bloated mess of a book. Takes way too long for this thing to get. It takes 4 chapters for him just to get the car home. Come on, man. Like, come on. They buy it from a guy named Roland LeBay, who in the movie, John Carpenter streamlines it, right? LeBay doesn't really factor a whole lot into the plot. They just buy the car from him and then he's out of the picture. In the film, the car comes off the assembly line evil. Shows it right at the beginning while George Thorogood's Bad to the Bone is playing. This car mangles a dude's hand and then somebody dies sitting inside of it on the assembly line. In the novel, we get this whole subplot with Roland LeBay possessing the car and possessing Arnie, and it's just, I don't know. We end up with handwriting comparisons where Arnie's handwriting has changed. That looks like LeBay's signature. And I just wasn't into that whole subplot. John Carpenter's film smartly cuts that crap out. We have a character here named Will Darnell who owns a garage where Arnie stores his car. And Will Darnell, in the book, there's like a 100-page subplot where Arnie is running illegal cigarettes across state line and gets arrested. Like, what? Why? It, this plot is unnecessary. It detracts from the story. This story has major pacing issues. It's so boring and repetitive. We talk to Roland LeBay's brother because Roland LeBay dies. You know, he's got this catchphrase that he uses where he calls everybody the shitters. Right, that's his thing. Well, the Arnie begins to adopt this phrase. But anyways, Dennis talks to Roland LeBay's brother George at the funeral, and we get like a backstory on the car. Find out that the wife and the daughter of Roland, like, they both died. It's in relation to the car. So yeah, it's like, okay, that's something. But when I talk about the repetitive nature of it, is that later in the book, Dennis tracks down George LeBay so he can talk to him again. For what purpose? So that he can tell him about the changes in Arnie and stuff. Like, we've already been through this, and it gets repetitive. We have another character, Buddy Repperton, who's a greaser with the switchblade, who he doesn't like Arnie. He's got a little gang of toadies, right? They go down to the airport and smash up Arnie's car, and try to get even with him. But the car is repairing itself, evidently. I don't know. There was some stuff in here about the odometer running backwards and the car de-aging, and I don't totally get what that was all about because there's a lot of half-baked stuff in here in this book. There's a pretty interesting conversation in the novel early on, the first time that George and Dennis meet, about, I don't know, alien intelligences and other stuff. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, kind of about like the nature of evil and can it infect material objects, and um, kind of like a devil's sacrament or something, like an evil cursed object. But it doesn't pay off because it just ends up being Roland LeBay is possessing the car and decomposing. I think really what Stephen King must have done was watched An American Werewolf in London and thought the guy that was decomposing while he's talking to the kid that's cursed was really cool, and he wanted to put something similar into his novel, but it just doesn't work. Doesn't work. Leah Cabot, she's a nothing character. She has like no personality. She's just the super attractive girl that falls in love with Arnie, and then Dennis falls in love with her, and then it's like kind of a Arthurian love triangle thing. And you know, Stephen King can't help but bonk you over the head that that's what's going on, because he actually has Lee tell Dennis that he's her be my knight, I think is what she says to him as he's going off to fight Christine in a septic truck. A septic truck in Darnell's garage. I mean, come on. John Carpenter has him fight the car in a bulldozer, which I think makes more sense. Fighting in an enclosed space, the bulldozer would have more maneuverability. I mean, yeah, I don't like this book. It started out fine. I liked the first section. The book's divided into 3 sections. The first section has a lot of character work between Dennis and Arnie, and I thought it was the strongest section of the book. I didn't mind that the pacing was slow at that point, but when we get to the middle section, Dennis kind of gets written out because he has an injury, a football accident that ends his career at the end of section 1, and then the book switches from Dennis narrating the story in first person to third person omniscient narration, like why. And there are chapters interspersed where Dennis is in them, but those chapters are not narrated by Dennis, which it's just very jarring to switch from Dennis narrating to third person omniscient, then back to for this final section to Dennis narrating again. I don't like it. That whole middle section should have been reworked. This book needed to be cut down by 200 pages, just like every other Stephen King book. It's way too bloated and too long. There is too much tertiary information that we don't need, and it takes forever for the car to actually kill someone. In a 526 page hardcover, nobody dies until page 247. That's the first kill. We're almost halfway through the novel. And turns out that getting killed by a car really isn't that great because even Stephen King knows that it's repetitive, and after a while he just starts having the car kill people off screen. So there you go. This book for me is a giant colossal stinker, just like the last two I read. Now I will say I enjoyed it more than Firestarter, and I enjoyed it a lot more than Cujo, but that's not saying much because the bar has been fallen so low that, like, what is this book, just a smidge better than those? I mean, it's not great. The movie's great. I highly recommend the movie. The book, all right. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.